Saved it. She had done something important, something that mattered. But then another thought struck her. She knelt beside the alien cat. Her fingers Mira gasped as she felt solid ground beneath her feet again. The station's radiant glow faded, and the towering guardian disappeared like mist in the wind. Her fingers tingled, and as she looked down, she realized she no longer held the device. It had become one with the station, its purpose fulfilled. She blinked against the sudden brightness and found herself standing outside her home. Back on Earth, the familiar scent of rain-kissed soil filling her nose. The alien cat sat beside her, its silver fur shimmering under the morning sun. "I'm home," Mira whispered, her voice laced with disbelief. The alien cat flicked its tail, watching her carefully. "Yes, the station honored your wish, but time flows differently between worlds. To you, it felt like hours. Here, it has been only a night." Myra's heart pounded. The events of the last day, no, the last night, felt too vast to have happened in so little time. But the memories were real. The station, the guardian, the soldiers, everything was real. Then her stomach dropped. If she was back, what had happened to the station? Had she done enough? The alien cat seemed to sense her worry. The station remains safe. The guardian has awakened. It will no longer be vulnerable to those who seek to misuse it. Because of you, it is what it was always meant to be. Mira exhaled, relief washing over her. She had sheen over its strange yet soft fur. "What about you? Will you go back?" The cat blinked, its luminous eyes filled with something almost like amusement. "My place was never on the station. I was a traveler, lost between worlds. And you showed me kindness when no one else would. I think I shall remain here, at least for a while longer." Mira grinned, the weight in her chest easing. "Then I guess I have a new best friend." A soft breeze rustled the trees, carrying the scent of damp earth and fresh morning air. Somewhere in the distance, the world continued as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But Mira knew better. The universe had shifted in a way no one else on Earth could understand. The alien cat stretched, flicking its tail. "Come, Mira. There is much ahead." This was not an end, but a beginning. Mira glanced at her house, her warm bed, her normal life, then back at the strange, silver-furred creature beside her. She had a feeling life would never be just normal again. Far beyond the stars, in a part of the galaxy where no human had ever set foot, whispers began to spread. A name carried on cosmic winds. A story passed from one world to the next. A tale of a young human who had stood before an ancient power and chosen to give, not take. Who had saved a lost sanctuary, not for conquest, but for kindness. A single act, so small, so seemingly insignificant, had left ripples across the cosmos. And somewhere, in the depths of unknown space, forces stirred, watching, listening. Because now, they knew humanity existed, and they would never forget. Centuries passed, empires rose and fell, but one phrase remained whispered among the stars. Words spoken in defiance, in hope, in unbreakable will. "Human, don't stop." Mira woke up the next morning with a lingering memory of the strange, silver-furred cat and the way its eyes had glowed in the dark. As the early morning sun streamed through her window, she sat up, rubbing her eyes, wondering if it had all been a dream. But the empty sandwich wrapper sitting on her bedside table told her otherwise. She hopped out of bed and hurried to the window, pressing her face against the glass. The alley where she had first seen the cat was empty. No sign of the mysterious creature. A pang of disappointment settled in her chest. Had it left for good? Was it just passing through? A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Her mother peeked inside. "Mira, sweetie, time to get ready. The festival's today. You don't want to be late." Mira had nearly forgotten. The annual Unity Festival, a celebration of the peaceful coexistence between humans and the many alien species now living on Earth, was one of the biggest events in town. Stalls filled with alien crafts, human inventions, and food from across the galaxy lined the streets. Parades featuring acrobatic displays from gravity-defying alien performers and bands playing music from dozens of cultures filled the air with excitement. It was one of the few times a year Mira truly felt like she was living in a universe much bigger than just her small town. Despite the excitement, she couldn't shake the thought of the silver cat. As she got dressed and stepped outside with her parents, she glanced down the alley one last time, just in case. The festival was as lively as ever, with creatures of all shapes and sizes filling the streets. Towering reptilian Ralvics browsed human-made jewelry, and delicate winged seraphians sipped earth tea with their translucent hands. The air was thick with the scent of sizzling food, some familiar, some entirely unrecognizable. Mira held her mother's hand tightly as they navigated the crowd, but her eyes were constantly scanning for something else. Then she saw it. Near a stall selling roasted meats from a dozen worlds, a flash of silver fur darted between the legs of the crowd. Myra's heart leapt. The cat. Without thinking, she pulled free from her mother's grip and took off after it. "Mira, wait," her mother called, but the sounds of the festival swallowed her voice. The cat slipped through a narrow gap between two vendor stalls, and Mira followed without hesitation. On the other side, the festival's noise became muffled. She found herself in a quieter part of town, near an old warehouse where abandoned shipments and forgotten relics of interstellar trade gathered dust. The silver cat sat at the edge of a crate, its glowing eyes fixed on her. This time, Mira didn't hesitate. She knelt down, extending her hand. "You came back," she whispered. The cat didn't move. Then, slowly, it padded forward, pressing its head against her palm. A strange warmth flooded through her fingers. For a moment, she swore she could hear something, whispers like distant echoes carried on the wind. Before she could react, the ground beneath her trembled. A low hum vibrated through the air, and suddenly, a hidden panel on the warehouse wall slid open, revealing a dark passage beyond. Mira gasped, stumbling back as the cat calmly turned toward the entrance. Something about the tunnel called to her, sending a shiver of both excitement and fear down her spine. The cat looked back at her, eyes glowing even brighter now, as if it were waiting for her to follow. Mira swallowed hard. The festival, her parents, the safety of her normal life, all of it seemed so far away now. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward and into the unknown. Mira stepped cautiously into the dark passage, her heart pounding like a drum. The silver cat padded ahead, its glowing eyes illuminating the narrow corridor just enough for her to see. The hum of unseen machinery vibrated through the walls, and Mira swallowed hard, wondering if she had just made a huge mistake. She glanced back, seeing the faint sliver of daylight from the warehouse entrance. She could turn back now, run to the festival, find her parents, and pretend none of this had happened. But something deep inside told her she was meant to be here, that this wasn't just a coincidence. The cat stopped abruptly, its ears twitching. Mira followed its gaze down the corridor, where faint blue lights flickered in the distance. The passageway widened into a circular chamber lined with metal walls covered in symbols she didn't recognize. In the center stood a raised platform, and resting on it was a ship. It wasn't like the sleek interstellar transport she had seen in news broadcasts or the bulky cargo freighters that sometimes landed in the city. This ship was small, no bigger than a truck, and shaped like a teardrop. Its dark metal hull pulsed faintly with veins of blue light, as if it were alive. Mira took a step closer, drawn by an unexplainable pull. The cat leapt onto the platform, sitting beside the ship, watching her intently. A sharp beep echoed through the chamber. Mira froze as a holographic interface flickered to life beside the ship, displaying alien text that shifted and rearranged itself until, miraculously, she could read it. Pilot recognized. Her breath hitched. "Pilot," she echoed, confused. Another line of text appeared. "Systems reinitializing. Awaiting command." Mira turned to the cat, as if expecting it to explain. Instead, it simply flicked its tail and stared at her with knowing eyes. "I don't know what this is," she stammered. "Why is it reacting to me?" Before she could even think of what to do next, the entire chamber trembled. A distant metallic clang reverberated through the walls, followed by the unmistakable sound of approaching footsteps. Not one pair. Multiple. Myra's chest tightened. Someone was coming. The cat's ears flattened, and it let out a low growl, a sound no ordinary feline should have been able to make. The ship's interface flickered again. Warning: unauthorized personnel detected. Initiating defensive protocols. Mira had no idea what that meant, but she didn't want to find out the hard way. "What do I do?" she whispered desperately. The cat suddenly leapt onto her shoulder, and the instant it made contact, Mira felt something click inside her mind. It wasn't painful, but it was overwhelming. A flood of images, memories that weren't hers, voices speaking in a language she didn't know yet somehow understood. Then she knew. This ship, it had been hidden here for a reason. And now, someone else was trying to take it. Mira barely had time to process that realization before the footsteps grew louder. A shadowy figure stepped into the chamber, tall and armored, its glowing visor scanning the room. More followed behind, their weapons raised. Mira had never seen them before, but something told her they weren't friendly. "There it is," one of them hissed in a guttural tone. "The ship is active again. Secure the asset." Mira took a step back. They were after the ship. The interface flared to life once more. "Immediate launch recommended. Pilot, confirm activation." Mira clenched her fists. She didn't understand how she was connected to this ship or why this was happening, but she had a choice to make. She looked at the cat, who gave her a slow, approving blink. The figures raised their weapons. Mira took a deep breath, and she slammed her hand onto the interface. Activation confirmed. The ship roared to life. The chamber exploded into chaos as the ship's systems roared to life. A low, resonant hum filled the space, and a surge of energy crackled through the air. The alien soldiers flinched back, their weapons flickering with disrupted targeting systems. Mira barely had time to react before the ship's hull pulsed with shifting light, responding to her presence. The silver cat leapt from her shoulder and landed on the control panel. Its tail twitched as if it was making calculations, and suddenly the ship's engines roared, lifting the entire craft slightly off the platform. Unauthorized intruders detected. Defensive maneuvers engaged. The words flashed across the holographic interface, and before Mira could brace herself, the ship fired a concentrated shockwave outward. The force sent the alien soldiers sprawling across the chamber floor. Sparks rained from the ceiling as conduits burst, and the entire structure groaned under the impact. Mira stumbled, but caught herself on the edge of the control panel. Her heart pounded against her ribs. She had no idea what she was doing, but something deep inside told her that running wasn't an option anymore. One of the soldiers recovered quickly. His visor glowed red as he lifted his rifle, aiming straight at her. "Get away from the ship, human," he snarled. Mira didn't listen. The cat let out a sharp yowl, and suddenly, blue light shot up Myra's arms as if the ship itself was reacting to her fear. A burst of kinetic force blasted outward, sending the soldier flying backward into the wall. Mira gasped. "Did I just do that?" The remaining soldiers regrouped, moving cautiously. One of them tapped a device on his wrist, and the heavy doors of the chamber's entrance began to slide shut. "They're trying to trap us," Mira shouted. The cat twitched its ears, and instantly, the ship's interface flared with new commands, initiating evasive protocols. The cockpit hatch slid open, revealing a small, sleek interior. Mira hesitated only for a second before she scrambled inside. The second she sat in the pilot's seat, the holographic controls wrapped around her hands like they were made for her. Information flooded her mind, guiding her on instinct alone. Outside, the soldiers fired at the ship, but the energy bolts dissipated harmlessly against its shielding. Come on," Mira muttered, gripping the controls. The walls of the chamber began to shake as the soldiers activated countermeasures. Launch sequence engaged. The ship surged upward. Mira barely had time to register the sudden acceleration as the craft shot toward the closing doors. The space between them was shrinking fast, too fast. "We're not going to make it," Mira shouted. The cat let out a loud, almost amused chirp. "Correction, we will." With a final burst of power, The ship twisted mid-air, narrowing its profile. At the last second, it slipped through the gap just as the doors sealed shut behind it. For a moment, everything was weightless. Then they were outside, soaring into the city's night sky. Mira gasped, staring out of the cockpit. The city lights stretched below them like a field of stars, but alarms blared across the skyline. She could already see aerial drones lifting off from nearby towers, moving toward them at high speed. "They're not letting us go," she whispered. The interface responded. "Hostile pursuit detected. Evasive maneuvers enabled." Mira gritted her teeth. She didn't know how, but she could feel the ship waiting for her command. So she gave it. "Let's show them what we can do." The ship twisted through the skyline, dipping between towering structures and weaving through streams of airborne traffic. Mira gripped the controls, feeling the ship respond to her every instinct as if it were an extension of herself. The alien drones pursued relentlessly, their energy blasts slicing through the air around her. Each time one came too close, the ship executed maneuvers she didn't even know were possible. "We can't keep this up forever," she shouted, her breath ragged. The silver cat, still perched on the console, let out a short chirp. "Agreed." Calculating escape trajectory. Mira could see the edge of the city now, beyond it a vast desert expanse leading to the unknown. But the drones were gaining on them. Suddenly, the ship's interface pulsed with new data. "Hyperspace, jump, coordinates locked." "Hyperspace." Myra's eyes widened. "We can do that." The cat flicked its tail. "Affirmative." Engaging now. A deep hum resonated through the ship as a brilliant tunnel of light opened before them. Just as the drones fired another barrage of weapons, the ship lurched forward, and everything around them stretched into an endless blur of stars. Myra's stomach flipped as the ship entered hyperspace, the city and its pursuers vanishing behind them. For a long moment, she sat in stunned silence, gripping the console as her heartbeat pounded in her ears. Did we just escape? The cat let out an approving trill. "Escape successful. Pursuers unable to track our jump signature." Mira exhaled a long breath and collapsed back into the pilot's chair. Relief flooded her system, but it was short-lived, because now, an even bigger question loomed in her mind. "Where are we going?" The interface responded immediately. "Destination unknown. Awaiting user input." Mira hesitated. She had never been beyond the city before, beyond her planet, and now she was flying through the stars in an ancient alien ship, accompanied by a mysterious cat that wasn't just a cat. She looked at the creature, who sat calmly, its silver fur shimmering under the soft blue glow of the cockpit. "What are you?" she asked softly. "Why did you choose me?" The cat tilted its head. "You offered food. You offered kindness." The universe responds to such gestures in ways even it does not always understand. Mira frowned. "That's not an answer." The cat's tail curled around its paws. "Perhaps not, but it is the truth." Mira sighed, rubbing her temples. "All right then, let's figure out what comes next, because I have a feeling this is only the beginning." The ship drifted through the endless expanse of space, its hull reflecting the distant glow of unknown stars. Mira sat at the controls, staring at the navigation screen as countless systems flickered across its interface. There were so many places she had never even heard of, and now, for the first time, she had the freedom to go anywhere. Beside her, the silver-furred cat stretched, its shimmering eyes scanning the stars with an intelligence beyond words. A destination must be chosen. The future waits for no one. Mira exhaled slowly. "Yeah, well, the future's gonna have to wait a minute, because I still don't know what the hell just happened." The events of the last few days felt like a dream. Finding the cat, escaping the city, discovering the ship, and outrunning alien pursuers who clearly wanted them gone. And yet, despite it all, she was still here, alive, flying through space with an alien companion that might be much more than it seemed. She turned to the cat. "Are they still looking for us?" The ship's interface pulsed with data. "No active pursuit detected. Threat level minimal." Mira sighed in relief. "Good. That gives us time. Time to figure out what we do next." The cat's tail flicked as it regarded her with its unblinking gaze. The question is not what you will do, but who you will become. Mira narrowed her eyes. Cryptic much. The creature let out a soft trill, something almost like laughter. You are part of something greater now. The choice you made, the kindness you offered, it has set events in motion that cannot be undone. Mira frowned, gripping the armrests of her chair. What do you mean? The stars stretched endlessly before them. The ship's AI flickered, then displayed a strange symbol, a series of interwoven circles glowing with ancient energy. A call has been sent. Myra's pulse quickened. To who? The cat blinked, its fur shimmering in the dim cockpit light. To those who remember. To those who still hope. To those who have waited for a sign that humanity had not been lost to time. Mira stared at the symbol on the screen. The weight of the moment pressed against her chest. She was just an ordinary girl, a kid who had shared her sandwich with a stray alien cat. And yet, somehow, she had become something more. The cat leaped onto her shoulder, its voice a whisper in her ear. The universe has remembered you, Mira. Now, let's see what it becomes. The ship's engines thrummed as new coordinates appeared on the display. Somewhere, beyond the void, something was waiting for her. And for the first time, Mira wasn't afraid. She reached for the controls and pushed the ship forward. Into the unknown. Into the future. And the stars braced for what was coming next.